Although the film takes us to the far reaches of space, I think questions of faith, love, familial bonds, and what it means to be human are all very present. What is it about space exploration that makes us reflect on ourselves?
Well, what we found was, the further out into the infinite we went, and the more we isolated these characters who have to go across the universe, the more the focus naturally becomes on their humanity, on that intimate bond they have, what makes us human, all those issues. I think there's something about the starkness and the massiveness of the environment they're in that really reduces this focus very tightly to human bonds and what makes us who we are.
And how theoretically possible is what we see in Interstellar, and how vital was the input of both NASA and Kip Thorne?
Kip Thorne's an executive producer on the project, and he's one of the great theoretical physicists. He was never sort of telling me, we can't do this, you can't do that. It was more a question of sitting with him and saying, well, what are the possibilities of real physics? Because those possibilities they're quite extraordinary. I mean, they're really beyond anything that you could just dream up as a screenwriter. And so, I found it really invigorating to have a plausible sort of rule set to work with that was so mind-bending.
I really admire your commitment to in-camera or practical effects where possible. And I just wondered what advances have been made since Kubrick made 2001, George Lucas made Star Wars, for instance, and how you sort of harness those on Interstellar.
Well, what we were able to do is look back, and this is something I like doing, sort of looking back at the great achievements of the past and avail ourselves of those techniques. So miniature work, motion control, things like that they pioneered. But then combining that with today's technology, which allows you to composite things in a particular way, use CG in a particular way to enhance those types of effects. So we really tried to build on what's been done before, but add our own techniques to it. And there are quite a few things in the film that have never been done before and may never be done again, I don't know. But certainly mixing and varying our techniques, using some old, some new, I think helps really disguise the trickery involved in the film, because obviously it's all artificial at the end of the day. But it felt real to us making it, and hopefully it feels real to the audience watching it.
What were your sort of guiding principles as you went about designing the spacecraft and the robots that we see in the film?
Really, the guiding principle was form over function. It was really about, sorry, did I say form over function? I meant function over form. Quite the reverse. I mean, with the robot, we sort of said, let's do the absolute minimalist thing. Let's say he's a piece of gear, like, a tripod or a camera dolly or something, not something that's supposed to look like a human being. So he has a personality that the great Billow puts into the thing. He was the guy puppeteering the robot, doing the voice of the robot. And great personality, I think, shines through, but the actual design is very, very utilitarian. It's really just about function. And the spaceships were the same. We didn't want to have any sense of design to them, particularly no futurist design. We really wanted to look at what's been used in space, what's been used on the Apollo missions, on the space shuttle, on the ISS, and every switch does what it needs to do, and every button does something, and all the docking mechanisms, all those things are all just based on contemporary reality of how do you deal with life in space.
And when it comes to filmmaking, what's the best piece of advice that you've been given, and what advice would you give to any sort of young filmmaker?
Well, it's sort of hard to advise anybody, really. I mean, Stephen Frears once very kindly told me that the best advice he had for me was to get myself a script and hang on to it, and insist on directing it. And I think that was certainly the best advice I ever had. So I would simply pass that on. Get yourself a story you really want to tell and stick to it.
Christopher Nolan, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.